moving on to the next topic. It's been something that's been in the news now for the last, I guess, almost 3 years. The war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Public opinion now seems to have turned where many people believe that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. This all started, at least this near-term war, started back on October 7th, 2023, when Hamas essentially invaded Israel, raping, abducting, kidnapping hostages, causing havoc on Israel's infrastructure, really, and starting a war. So are they committing genocide now? The IDF controls 75% of the Gaza Strip. What's happening?
Yeah, if I may, let me start with the definitions again, only because this is a loaded term, right? So it's a complicated question and everybody has very strong opinions on it. So the definition, right? So according to the 1948 Genocide Convention, in Article 2, genocide happens when any of the following acts are committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. So these are the acts that are listed. Killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So this is the legal definition that is there. Now, one of the things that you will note very clearly, there are serious gray areas in this definition. For example, it is very hard to establish intent to destroy a group. So most often, this is inferred from patterns of conduct that happens. Second gray area, when you say in part, how much of the population is that? 1%? 10? 50%? We don't know. And another gray area is are Palestinians a distinct national group under the convention? It's not clear. So just wanted to put the definition out there. I'll make some comments later, but I wanted to start off with the definition of what it is and how gray it is. And this will explain to you why people have different views on what is happening with
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty cut and dry. I don't think they're committing genocide. I think they're at a war, and war is not pretty, and there are casualties. You can't be in a population of 2 million people in the space that they're in and not expect human casualty. What number of human casualty is acceptable when you're in war? Zero is not the answer. So, what number? Actually, if you want to play that clip where Charlie Kirk actually was talking about it, I think it's a good clip to kind of summarize what's going on.
Sure, and this is a clip of him actually debating a student on the topic of Israel and Palestine here. So
let me ask you, in the conflict of Israel versus Hamas, who's the good guy?
I believe both Hamas and the Israeli government are evil, but I think also that there is no justification.
Are they equally?
There is no justification for the murder and mutilation of thousands of innocent people and children.
Let's
zero in on.
There
is no justification, Mr. Kirk, for invading hospitals, for bombing innocent populations and dragging out a war which is damaging Israel and the West.
You've made that point, but
it's not a point; it's a moral truth, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. It was also a moral truth that the war started because 1,300 Jews were killed and 200 were taken hostage. And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction. Let me finish. I let you talk. Israel, at its holiest day of the calendar year besides Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, Samat Torah, the 50-year anniversary of the Six-Day War. On Shabbat, Hamas invaded Israel, deciding to go recklessly to music concerts, to homes, to kibbutzes, and taking 200 plus hostages. They knew what they were doing. In one of the most cloistered urban environments on the planet, 2 million people live in a place where it's impossible to wage war. Impossible. Where they wear civilian clothing, they violate every tenet of the Geneva Convention, and the IDF, when they do something right, they get no credit. When they do life-saving surgeries of a Gazan child, they get no credit. When they drop leaflets, they get no credit. But when they happen to bomb a place where they are operating their military from, which we now know from third-party verified sources, hundreds of Hamas military operations are in mosques, schools, and hospitals. I'm sorry, the country where they were living in relative peace on October 6th, that all of a sudden we had a war and Hamas started the war. And I don't see people that were really upset about the 2 million Germans that were killed in World War II, civilians. A tragic truth of war is that civilians die. I don't like it, and you don't like it. And they brought it upon themselves. The only operation and entity to blame is the leadership of Hamas, not the Israeli government, for fighting this defensive war after they were invaded. There is a good guy and there is a bad guy. I honestly...
Isn't that the morality of a child?
Well, hold on.
You can pause it. The debate goes on. For me, it's like, if you take a stick and you poke a bear that has kids, and you, matter of fact, kill one of the kids of the bear, expect the bear to attack back. It is mind-boggling to me why we would allow Hamas propaganda, which on the first day, on October 7th, when they were doing this, they were recording themselves as the victims. Like, that was their agenda from the very beginning, to now drag off. All the numbers that we got for what's happening in Gaza was from Hamas. Hamas's charter is to destroy Israel. Like, how do you negotiate with that? When you're on one side of that, how do you negotiate with it? There is no negotiation when you are coming out and saying, I want the other side completely dead, otherwise there is no peace, right? And I hate to say it, the only way to settle this is to take Hamas out of power and return the Palestinian area, that Gaza, back to the Palestinians, which I'm pretty sure is in Israel's plan. They did it back in 2007 when they returned it back, and unfortunately the Palestinian people voted in Hamas as your leadership. And I think that's silly to call out genocide when you're in the middle of a war. And we know, like Charlie said in the video, third party sources have proven that the places where the IDF is attacking, Hamas was operating out of. Now, there are cases where they attack places where they suspected Hamas to be attacking, and they weren't there. But it's hard to know which is which. And even in those places, I believe there's video footage of Hamas shooting rockets from there. So it's like you don't know where these tunnels come up and end. So I don't know. For me, it's pretty clear that they're not committing genocide. They're just in the middle of a very bloody war.
Yeah, I think, I'll add on to that, and I'll take a step back, right, from war. Life is precious in the sight of God, right? Whether you're Israeli or Palestinian, even Hamas, you're made in the image of God, the imago Dei. But this is a war, right? And in a war, there's no winner. There are losers and people that lose more. But I do want to make this point. There's a clear terrorist in this war. It's Hamas. Hamas has a history of being a terrorist organization, explicitly written in the charter. You can go Google it and look it up. Their goal is the destruction of Israel. Hamas still holds hostages. As of September 2025, they hold 48 hostages that are still remain to be somewhere in Gaza. Some have been declared dead, but there are some that are still alive. Hamas still governs parts of the Gaza Strip. They still engage in guerrilla warfare in some areas of Gaza, and they still sabotage supply lines of food. I want you to take a look at this video here that I want to share, and you'll clearly see what's happening, what's going on here. This is a post on Twitter by Cheryl Wrote It. Caption is, what happens when the UN does decide to distribute just one aid truck out of over 950 delivered by Israel to the middle of Gaza. Watch and let the world see for themselves. And essentially what's happening in this video, you see Hamas beating up Gazans. So you clearly see, on top of that truck, men with rifles literally hitting people, taking aid. And so this humanitarian crisis, quote unquote, is being used or being catalyzed by Hamas to essentially create propaganda, like we see in the news today. And so my take on that is similar. We need to get rid of Hamas as a governing structure or as an entity.
And
Yeah.
I think that's a good point you made. Like, they still have hostages. Well, like, after all this ground fair, after all this bloodshed, and like, I don't think the American general community that reads the CNN headlines really understands the fact that it's not like Israel completely controls that area and now they are going in and systematically trying to kill people, right? That's not the case. Hamas still owns whole portions of the Gaza Strip, and they're holding hostages. If they want to start negotiating peace, go back to when you started the war and say, I'm sorry, here's your people back, right? Like that would be a good effort to start peace. How can you possibly have peace when literally, in my bear analogy, you attack a bear with 3 cubs where you kill one and then you take another one and you try to run off and the bear's chasing you down? Like, give the cub back. I think it's just so silly. I mean, this topic gets me so heated because there's a lot of history that people overlook. Israel has tried repeatedly to have peace with the Palestinian people, and things were going really good. Go back to the pictures of before in 2007 when Israel handed over Gaza strips and other parts back to the people that were in that area. They had infrastructure, things were good, and then Hamas moved in and it just went to hell.
Yeah. So it like you guys are right. Like it's a complicated topic, right? So like if I were to throw in some numbers and just as a caveat, right? Some of them are hotly debated. Estimates are sometimes all over the place. But roughly, we're talking about a population in Gaza of 2.1 million people. The estimates of those who have been killed so far is about 65,000 plus, right? So we are talking about about 3% or so of the population who's died as a result of the war. Like there are some more things, right? So one of the problems is like, again, there are estimates are like very varying. You have about the number of Hamas fighting men that were there is about 20 to 30K when the start of the war. Israel took out a good chunk of them. Estimates vary again, but roughly about 10K is what they agree on. There was a leaked memo recently on that. But the sad part is like Hamas has recruited, and like from what I've seen, they are back to the same capacity of what they were when they started the war. So to answer your direct question about genocide, that's why I gave the definition, and you can clearly see there is gray area, and this is why this has been discussed in the United Nations, and you've got different views on it. It's it's just one of those sad things where if you look at how many people have died, the proportion of people, and how this is a very strategic warfare for Hamas. And the question for Israel is this strategy they're using, because their stated goal is to destroy and completely eliminate Hamas. It doesn't seem like they are anywhere near that goal based on what's happening on the ground today. And part of the problem is that this is an ideology as well, right? If they continue to teach the next generation about why they believe in their cause and Israel is the enemy, this is just going to perpetuate. Part of the problem is like Israel has to, and the world has to figure out a way how to win the hearts and minds of people. And brute force may be part of the strategy, but it cannot be the entire strategy.
Yeah, I think you can't start rebuilding until there is a platform to rebuild, right? Like I think it's heart-wrenching. Some of the videos you see on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook where you see kids trying to hold their parents and the casualty of war, it is heart-wrenching. And I completely understand that sentiment. And as a Christian, it breaks my heart to think these people are dying. And I don't know how they're going through it or how I would react, right? But on an equal footing, if Israel laid down all of their weapons and said, we will not fight anymore, will there be peace? And the answer is clearly no. There will not be peace if Israel just decides to lay down all of their weapons. Hamas will just come in and kill them. And so you can only negotiate peace from a position of power. If you have the power to push back and you have the power to set the rules, you can establish peace. Now, some might look at that and say, like, well, that's one-sided, right? Peace is one-sided. It takes the strong to say we're not fighting anymore, that this is how we're going to do it. We did that in World War I. We did that in World War II. Any war where, look at the surrender of Japan when the U.S. attacked it. We killed millions of innocent people. But at the end, we came in, we rebuilt, and now their economy is great and they're doing fantastic. Not saying you take away from the lives that were taken, but you cannot establish peace without one side being ready to say that we will not fight and the other side agreeing, okay, we're done fighting. And that will not happen with Hamas in power.
Yeah, and innocent people die in war, but Israel is the only uh, contender in war that I've known that actually announces an attack before they're actually going to attack someone. So I want to share a video here. This here is from Dr. Eli David, who's on Twitter. And this has been pretty common in the war. Before Israel attacks an area, they drop leaflets. Here, this is Gaza City. They're giving them a final evacuation notice before Israeli forces move in. So that paper is the leaflets just coming down. So again, why are they in Gaza City? It's a highly populated area. They're not there to kill innocent civilians. Hamas hides their infrastructure in densely populated civilian areas. That's their strategy of war. Fortunately, it's in the middle of civilian neighborhoods, and I think the world needs to see that. If we're going to say Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, let's ask ourselves, why is Hamas still holding hostages? Why is their infrastructure set up in civilian areas? Why are they still, firing and, maintaining their position in this war? So I think there's still a war that's going on between two sides here.
And just to clarify, the practice of dropping leaflets is not unique to Israel. It's been done during the Gulf War, the Korean War, the World Wars. It's not uncommon. I just wanted to clarify that. So, but yeah, those are the arguments, right? I mean, you've got on the one side like people who say that it is not genocide will say that Israel's stated military goal is like to dismantle Hamas, right? And it's a self-defense. It was initiated after October 7. And Israel has made efforts to mitigate civilian casualties as much as they can. But on the other side, they say, well, sure, but if you listen to the rhetoric from some of the public officials and leaders, it clearly you can hear that they imply the intent of committing genocide. And then there is a disproportionate use of force and the utter destruction of the infrastructure, like 70+% of all the buildings, it's all gone. So like, if you then go back to the definition of genocide, you can argue why some people will say that it fits in there. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but the definition of genocide makes it so gray that you can make it fit or not fit, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. Israel's not innocent in this war. I don't think any government entity in the world is innocent. Every government is evil. There are some that are more evil and less evil. I don't want to equivocate them with Hamas either, right? So they're not innocent in this war. But are they committing genocide? I agree with you guys. I don't see the evidence for that. We're gonna have a final round of thoughts. Did you want to give a final statement here?
Just in general, I think it is worth it to have a broader discussion, because this genocide discussion was it's a very focused question. And like I said, the definition, it makes it very vague that you could argue either side. I think it's worth it for us to think through what are the scenarios of peace. Like, not that others haven't, but let's have a session where we have a blue sky thinking. What is the ideal method of peace? Like, I know, like, for example, Trump gave a completely tangential suggestion of making that whole strip like a wonderful place, a strip of hotels and whatever, right? But it at least introduces the idea of something totally different. And I think it's worth it for us to discuss, like, well, if the goal is peace, how can that be achieved? And is Israel achieving it? Are they closer to their goal today than they were 2 years ago, is a question.
Excellent.
I think we have to ask, why is a place the size of New Jersey, where there's 10 million, 10, 15 million people living, the source of the world's frustration? There's billions of people that surround that area where there are Muslims committing atrocities. Go to India and look at the Hindu population persecuting Christians and Muslims there. There's so much atrocity in the world that you have to stop and wonder, why is the world so concerned with what's going on in a place the size of New Jersey with 10, 15 million people? And I think if you start asking, and like there's worse atrocities. There's actual genocides happening in Africa and Armenia. Like none of those things get popularized in American politics. So I would ask the listeners to ask themselves the question, why this particular area? Why is it such a heated topic in the American political space?
Yeah, awesome thoughts. I think one thing we can all agree on is life is precious in the sight of God. Both sides, right? Whether you're Palestinian or Israeli, and we should pray for an end to the war and pray for God's mercy to a quick and swift conclusion, even though it's been 3 years. Anyway, thank you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed our first podcast here. I want to invite you guys back to our second episode of The Balanced Lens next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.